What did this mean? Where was this all leading? Now that Alien Romulus has come out and connected the lore to the previous Alien movies, and now that it seems like the lore is going to be retconned yet again by the Alien Earth TV show, we need to understand what was Ridley Scott's plan and why did it truly get derailed. And the answer in why it got derailed can be perfectly demonstrated in Alien Covenant and Prometheus and Ridley Scott himself. And we're going to get to why and exactly what his plan truly was. Look guys, when it comes to the alien lore, there's not a single piece of lore in any other type of fiction that is as interesting as this, in my opinion, at least when it comes to sci-fi, alright? Now, when it comes to the prequel movies, we have to come to terms with an inevitable fact. Ridley Scott has a huge ego. Most directors at his level do, okay? But the problem is when someone has a huge ego and they started off a franchise, and we do have to give Ridley Scott his flowers here because Alien 1 in 1970, whenever the hell it came out, is one of the best movies of all time, okay? He gave us an iconic villain with the xenomorph. The problem is when a director has an ego like that and then he hasn't worked on that franchise since that first movie and then he comes back to it later, he tends to want to overcompensate because of the time he hasn't been with the series. Now we can most notably see this when it comes to the two conflicting ideas in his head. Ridley Scott wanted to delve into the origin of life, but at the same time that very theme is at odds with the isolated, almost slasher-like nature of an alien story. But he tried to connect both, and the problem is connecting both, you get a conflicting movie. I believe Ridley Scott had a mythological Bible of lore that was half done. It was half fleshed out, and the other half was in his head. Okay? He had this half written. He started Prometheus. Prometheus was made, and he was ready to write the second half and implement it within his other two movies, Alien Paradise, Lost or whatever it's called, and maybe a third follow-up that would have connected those prequels to the first Alien. But the problem is, Prometheus didn't track well with fans or critics, so the studio kind of forced him to make the Alien Covenant a xenomorph movie, when it would have been a movie about Paradise, the engineer's world. So we never have truly got to see more of that Bible fleshed out, but I believe it exists. Ridley Scott did not like a lot of what James Cameron did with Aliens. He didn't like the fact that there was a queen added to the mythology, because a queen suggests that, okay, a queen is giving birth to these creatures and it's a hive. That suggests that the aliens are more animalistic, more like an insect, more like an animal that you can understand. Ridley Scott didn't want you to be able to understand the xenomorph. He wanted the xenomorph to be almost Lovecraftian in nature. He wanted the xenomorph to be something that you didn't know, that you couldn't relate to. The fact that there's a queen, kind of like bees, that's creating these, it adds an unnecessary justification to the lore that Ridley Scott didn't want. He wanted things to remain mysterious. But after the franchise that is Alien started popping out movies, that mystery is lost and the xenomorph itself has become oversaturated. So Ridley Scott's like, screw it, I gotta save this franchise, and I'm doubling down with Prometheus. But now we gotta talk about post-Alien Resurrection. Okay, after Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection bombed everywhere, Ridley Scott decided, okay, Prometheus needs to go back to the roots, but not in the way people think. We're going to flesh the world around the xenomorph out. Now, I actually love Alien Resurrection. To me, it's a better guilty pleasure than most Fast and Furious movies post like number 6. I think it's a really funny movie. This creature here, the hybrid, does make me cringe a little bit. It looks goofy, but I enjoy Alien Resurrection for what it is. All right, now we got to go to the mystery. Ridley Scott said himself, the one thing that annoyed him most about these Alien films, besides the Queen coming in and ruining things, is that the space jockey was never touched upon. You had a perfectly mysterious cosmic entity that was in the first Alien film, and no director or writer ever questioned what that was and delved into it. Well, Ridley Scott said, okay, we're not going to go back to the xenomorph again after the last 4 movies. We're going to do something different this time. We're going to explore the space jockey. And that's very interesting to do. Most people would have preferred that he left the space jockey alone because there's mystery there, right? And we don't need that mystery solved. But Ridley Scott's like, nah, fuck, we're gonna solve the mystery. We're gonna show you exactly what that thing is. The problem with Prometheus is this. It has a lot of big ideas, ambitious ideas it's trying to explore. Smart ideas, some would say. Smarter than the standard Alien film about a xenomorph trying to kill people. The problem is it ends up being the same kind of film. It has the same kind of appeal to this team goes to a planet to discover something. An infestation occurs that they bring back on board, and it causes panic, pandemonium, and a lot of people to die, and a being ends up being born from somebody's chest. Now, the order of these events are paced a bit differently in Prometheus, but the story ends up having the same plot beats, and the characters. This movie is trying to be smarter than it ends up being, unfortunately, because of the characters. All right, now first I gotta come at Ridley Scott a bit here and the writers team. You have the space jockey, a creature that you're gonna flesh out in this movie, and your first scene in your film is showing exactly not only exactly what the space jockey is, but underneath the suit, but the creation of humanity within the first 2 minutes of the film. What a great way to just ruin all the mystery right away. We're going to show you right away exactly how humanity was created. He ingests this pathogen. Now, most people will say, oh, but the audience didn't know at the time. Well, by the way the beginning credits are shown, and the next scene showing Dr. Sean Holloway looking at a bunch of cave paintings and saying, oh, these could have been our creators, we know exactly what they're referring to. We know that these are the engineers of humanity because the first scene just showed us, and then the next scene we're told it. The mystery is gone right in the first 10 minutes. I don't know why Ridley chose this sequence of events. This should have been a slow reveal. This should have been your opening scene. Does anyone remember the supposedly viral TED Talk with Peter Wayland giving his speech about Prometheus? Such a good scene. You perfectly understand his motivations and the motivations of the Prometheus crew within this one scene alone. The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts. A very symbolic quote. If you don't know, T.E. Lawrence puts his finger to burn a match out, and people are wondering, how did he do it? And he's like, oh, well, I don't mind that there's pain. I take it in because it's all about what they see, what the people see when I'm doing this, right? That's Wayland's motivation. He knows that expanding and doing immoral things in the pursuit of truth, he knows that's wrong, and he knows it's painful to the soul. And painful to many people around them, but the pain is not ultimately what's going to define him. It's the end result, right? Engineers have zero aura. I'm sorry, these are pathetic beings in my opinion. They look big and jacked and they look godly, like a Greek statue. The problem is the first encounter we have with an engineer, other than the one sacrificing itself, is an engineer hologram running and getting his head chopped off in a door like an idiot, and his head being experimented on in a very goofy way, I might add, in Prometheus. All this stuff goes down in the first act of the film. This is how they close off the first act of the movie. Showing an engineer getting his head brain reanimated and showing it making faces before exploding. This is what you do with this alien that you're building up to, the alien that created humanity? This is how you show it? Talk about no aura. The main problem, to be honest, is like these characters are paper thin at best. Okay, there's a scene where Idris Elba and his crew sacrifice themselves to blow up their ship and to stop the engineer spaceship, the derelict. But it ends up being kind of laughable because the music is made to seem like, oh, we care about these people, right? We really, really care about them. No, we don't care about them. We don't know who these people are. We haven't even spent any time with them. The crew is too big for us to care about everyone, and they are the people we care about least. It's a team of assholes. This guy here is the nicest out of this crew, but he's an asshole for looking at a space cobra and pretending it's something that's adorable and worthy of touching, and then he gets killed. Idiot. She is one note throughout the entire time. She makes everything difficult for our main characters, and it's like this slow reveal. Oh, well, it's going to be a twist. She's actually the daughter of Peter Wayland. We could see this coming a mile away. Okay, father. She says that as if we're supposed to be surprised that she's a daughter. It's the most predictable plot twist of all time. You have these two who are just insufferable assholes the whole time. He's an asshole to David, and all he does is chuckle and laugh at people because he finds them to be a joke. Oh, great. Go get killed, my friend, by a pathogen because you had sex with your girlfriend. And his first line that we hear him say is, "I'm not here to be your friend, I'm here to make money." Great character writing, Ridley Scott and team. Great. Really three-dimensional characters right here. David is the saving grace of this movie. We can get to the pros of Prometheus. David is the saving grace of it. He is the most interesting character. Every scene he has is great. I love all of his dialogue. I love his scene with Dr. Holloway where he's talking about, okay, what would you do if your creator told you that he made you because you could? It's such a good scene. It's unfortunate that we don't have more of these scenes in this film, but it's a perfect scene. David is the best thing to come out of these prequels. Now, they do some stupid things with him in the Alien Covenant movie, which we'll get to, but I liked him for the most part in Prometheus. Okay, I do think Naomi Rapace is underused. Naomi Rapace, I'm ruining her name, but she's underused in this film. I actually like her character a lot. I think she's a good character. They don't flesh her out enough. Her relationship with Holloway, I don't care about it, but I do care about her. I do understand her motivation. We see a bit of her backstory with God and her dad and all that, but that's all we get from her. She's underused, but we do care about her as a main character. I do think she's a prominent, strong point of this film, her and David. Literally the character that this movie should have been focused on. He and David should have been the center point of this film, with Shaw and Holloway as supporting characters. He's used, like the TED Talk isn't even in the movie. It's some scene that's used to promote this film. He comes in for like one speech in the beginning and then comes in at the end only to get killed. Like, come on, man. And his motivation of living forever, very nice character element. No other character, every other character on this ship has some motivation to meet their maker. He wants to meet his maker so he can live longer. It's very selfish, and it's a very interesting thing that we could have touched on, but we didn't decide not to do it. Besides that, the obvious pros of the movie is it's a very good looking film. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. The soundtrack, the score of this film, the Prometheus theme, it gives me emotions every time I hear it. When in Alien Romulus, when Rook mentions Prometheus Fire, we hear this movie's theme, and it brought back so much nostalgia and emotions. It's such a great theme. Aesthetically, this movie is very, very pleasing. It just doesn't have a lot of substance to it. No pun intended. Where Prometheus wasted potential, Alien Covenant literally fucking annihilated it to oblivion. Okay? First of all, I don't like the fact that we are in an engineer's world, not the home world. Apparently, this is not the home world. I do think that's cap. I think Ridley Scott wanted Paradise to be the home world, but because of the crap fest that was this movie, he decided to kind of last minute change it up. He's like, okay, this is not going to be the engineer's homeworld. We can't leave it off like this because this would look pathetic. But anyways, I would have loved it to be more H.R. Giger and not whatever. Like, it should have looked like how the Harkonnen world in Dune looked, rather than this spiritual monk place that looks like something would have. It looks like an ancient civilization on Earth built by humans. It should look alien in nature. Okay? But besides that, this movie is literally the same story we've seen. And yes, they wanted to make it more like an Alien film, but they're still trying to be Prometheus at the same time at certain parts. A couple of dumb crew members go to a planet, an infestation happens, an alien comes on board, kills people. That's our movie. It's the same shit we've seen. I hate all these people. Prometheus, some of them were just, I didn't care about them. Most of them I didn't care about. With this, I really don't give a fuck about any of them. Okay? Specifically these two idiots. Why would you see this dude whose eyes are rolling back, blood's coming from his mouth, and he's shaking control being looking pale and infected, and your first thing, you're a scientist, a doctor, and your first instinct is to go and hug him? Oh, but she wanted to calm him down. Bro, this guy was done. He's convulsing everywhere, shit's about to come out of his back, and you just go and hug him, and then this dumb chick ends up blowing up the damn ship because she's slipping and falling everywhere with her gun, because she doesn't know what to do. Granted, okay, they're not soldiers. Okay, they're not fighters. They're not experienced. I would at least expect you not to blow the ship up. And also, they took off their helmets, which, okay, fine. There's oxygen. It's free to breathe. Okay, perfect. But you don't think, like, just to avoid risk that, you know, there could be some bacteria in the air or some creatures that you don't want to get. Like, you guys just feel the need to just go somewhere, smoke a random cigarette, and step on these spores? Really? And get yourselves infected? without having a helmet on? Idiots. The biggest idiot of them all, the Captain Oram dude. This dude who talks about God and Christianity and bitches and moans about, oh, they're not going to accept me as a captain because I'm Christian, or oh, they didn't want me as captain, the company didn't want me as captain because I'm Christian. Bro, Elizabeth Shaw, not that he knows, but Elizabeth Shaw was one of the prominent people in the Prometheus expedition, and her belief in God is why she was chosen. Idiot. He didn't know that, but I'm just saying, he bitches and moans the entire time, and his first reaction to seeing his crewmate's head rolling in water as a neomorph just killed it is to say to David, he sees the corpse of a friend, and the rest of it being eaten by a neomorph, and his reaction is, David, I saw the devil once. He was a devil, and I'll never make that mistake again. Like, bro, are you a human? Have some reaction to this. Your friend is dead, you asshole. And then this idiot decides to follow David, who's been sus the entire film, and puts himself headfirst into an egg. Fucking moron. Hate him. Good, go die, bro. I hate this character so much, man. And I hate the life cycle of a neomorph. It's so easy and convenient. They step on a s'more, the s'more goes in the ear, and then boom, a neomorph is done. Really? That's how easy it is to create a neomorph? Why isn't this called the perfect organism? Why does a xenomorph have such a complicated, beautiful, perfect life cycle, and then this thing is just easily created like that? So stupid. And David went from badass G in Prometheus to this random weirdo who wants to kiss himself and say, nobody will love you like I love you. Granted, I like that he's a bit crazy and evil in this. I do like that twist on his character. I just would have loved to have seen it with Shaw and not these morons in this film. And that brings us to Shaw, the big missed opportunity. She and David should have been the center point of this. Them meeting the engineers and David turning against her and the engineers should have been the main focus. And what a tragic end to be killed off screen, huh? Some of the only pros of this movie, I like these two. I like Danny McBride. Some people said he's misplaced in this film, but I like him. And I like her. And they're the only ones who survive. Well, until the end, of course. It's the best scene in the film is the opening scene where David and Peter Weyland talk. Again, this relationship should be touched on more in the series. It should have been the center point of the prequels. And this conversation just tells you everything you need to know about the motivations. One has a big ego and wants to meet his makers. The other doesn't understand why humans are his masters and wants to be a creator on his own. It's such a freaking good scene. All in all, if we're taking it out of the lens of an Alien franchise, which I think you kind of have to at some point, it is a solid B movie at best. So I don't hate it. I don't think it's terrible like a lot of people do. I think it's a good time. It just shat on so much potential. Okay, now David creating the xenomorphs. Look, we could get to the main point here, all right? David really didn't create the xenomorphs. He kind of just iterated on a design that engineers were working on, a process. But the xenomorphs that we come to see now are a direct result of his experimentations. Now, I love it and I hate it. I love the idea of David going rogue against his makers and creating the abomination that would kill people, that would risk killing all humans. But honestly, I like the mystery of the xenomorphs and them being around for much longer than David's existence. I kind of do think it ruined the lore a little bit when it comes to xenomorphs and made it a list. Aura is everything with that first Alien film. You didn't know the space jockey, you didn't know where the xenomorphs come from. This kind of ruins the aura of both. And a lot of these prequels are made by the fact that Ridley Scott wasn't himself sure what came first, the chicken or the egg, the xenomorph egg or the queen, right? Now that James Cameron implemented a queen, okay, Ridley Scott had asked himself, oh, fuck, how do we create the queen? Who creates the queen, right? It all comes back to the pathogen. Now, I think originally what the movie was supposed to be, the sequel to Alien Covenant, was David versus engineers, and then him battling them on a ship that would crash land on LV-426, and then we get our plot of Alien 1, right? Him creating the xenomorphs, the engineers trying to stop him, and he would turn her into a surrogate queen. Not the queen we would know to be now, but like a queen that would lay eggs. And then the engineers would try to freaking stop him. And then that conflict would end up them racing towards LV-426, trying to find David. David dies in the pursuit of his goals, but his xenomorphs live on. And then just when the engineers think they've won and they're about to leave LV-426, a freaking face hugger pops on their face and ends up creating a xenomorph and killing him and leaving that derelict ship there. And maybe one of these engineers lets out an emergency signal saying, don't come here, a beacon, which is a stupid idea, by the way, but still. And I would love to know what happened to that xenomorph, because that would have been huge. But anyways, we need to get to the plan here, right? Paradise Lost, which was what Covenant was supposed to be, it was supposed to touch on what we saw in the mural and the pathogen itself, okay? This was supposed to be the alien homeworld. But they decided to do whatever the hell this world was, a world of another tribe of engineers. Now, this would have been revealed. Paradise Lost would have shown what that was. What that was, the deacon that was on the mural, okay? Truly, I think what was going to happen, the plan here, was the pathogen was not created by the engineers. It's been around for a while. I view the pathogen like the Ether Infinity Stone, that liquid, that red liquid stone from Thor, the Reality Stone, okay? It's been around for a while. When the Big Bang happened, and you had organic life being created from all these chemical reactions caused by energy bursts and collisions, you had this pathogen, which was, the pathogen is everywhere. A little bit of it is everywhere in space and in different planets and clusters, and it streamlines evolution of organic life, okay? And somewhere later in time, engineers came and found it. Now, whether engineers were themselves created as a direct byproduct of this elixir, we don't know. We don't know. But there's something we do know, okay? The engineers used it and have been experimenting with it ever since to augment themselves for travel and whatnot. And then somewhere along the line, a facehugger was created by their experiments, and it ended up killing an engineer through self-sacrifice, which is a big theme in this series. Back to that T.E. Lawrence quote. And a deacon was born. And the engineers saw this deacon and let it loose on maybe some kind of racist species on a planet, and it killed its way through everything. And they were like, oh my god, this thing is bigger than us, it's deadlier, it's a feral being. So they ended up worshipping it and putting it on a mural as if it's a god. And they decided we need to replicate it. But the problem is the deacon itself doesn't self-replicate. The deacon does not have babies. So we need to start replicating a queen of some sort. And this is the same process that David would later iterate on later. So this is concept art from Alien Paradise. We would have seen a deacon slowly turning more xenomorph-esque in features. Okay? A breeder is what the engineers were trying to create. And David would have saw this, he would have seen this and figured it out. Right? He would have met with these engineers in Alien Paradise, or at least discovered their experiments. Now, through the course of hybridization and evolution, the deacon as we know it would turn over time to a xenomorph. The xenomorph is a direct result of a deacon, but people trying to replicate a deacon and turn it into a queen. Okay? And the grand design is the alien queen that lays its own eggs, and it can self-replicate without us having to mess with the pathogen and experimenting on it constantly. It can do it on its own. That's the perfect organism that's referred to, right? So remember, when the pathogen is exposed and infects people, they always turn xenomorph-esque. Their head goes back like this, and they start turning into creepy crawlies, and their mind goes to shit, and they become animalistic, right? The pathogen, there's something about it that gives way to the grand design of a xenomorph, and that's what the engineers saw. So, we have two sets of evolution, okay? The pathogen itself, when the engineers were using it, there are two results. One, the engineer just ingests it, all right, one variant of it that they created, and they get annihilated on a chemical level, but it causes evolution. It causes the birth of humanity, right? And then we have another form, which is augmented revolution, where they have to go out of their way to create a facehugger, which then impregnates them and then creates a deacon, and then they have to hybridize and experiment on the deacon and its DNA, and then within that timeline of evolution and hybridization, augmented evolution, not natural like was done with us, we get the xenomorph. So the xenomorph in the way is the antithesis to us. Maybe this is what Ridley was getting at. The perfect organism is something that has to be created and augmented through time. All right, it cannot evolve naturally like we did. The xenomorph, the deacon, to get from the deacon to the xenomorph, you needed to get into a lab and continuously experiment with different species, humans, everything. Remember, David was experimenting with a lot of things. We can assume that the engineers were doing the same thing too. Different species to create a queen that could create the xenomorph. And it's funny how we get bigger through evolution. Somehow humans just were getting bigger, and xenomorphs, you know, we got from Deacon, then we went down in size to the xenomorph. It's two different sets of evolution that come into conflict. Okay, one breeds life and creates civilizations, okay? The other breeds, self-replicates only to create more death. Maybe there's an allegory there, maybe there's a comparison symbolically that humans, how much different are they than xenomorphs? Everywhere they go, death happens, right? We destroy our own planet to get to build technology, and we kill each other in war, blah, 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 right? There's plenty of comparisons you can make there on a symbolic level, okay? David was just iterating on the process of evolution to get that queen that engineers were doing, right? I feel that doing all this shit and having a base from an engineer, that space jockey, experimenting with the goo, I think we're connecting too many threads. I think this is cool for the xenomorphs, but having it also connect to humans is too much. I don't like it when things are that connected, it just gets corny. It's too connected. So, I think Ridley Scott was at his best when he himself didn't know much about his own creations. When he himself knew that there was mystery and it didn't touch on that can of worms. He just like, let's just make a damn good film. And I believe that's what should have happened with those two movies, but we didn't get it. He tried to go too much in the lore. He tried to justify too many things. He tried to make the Alien franchise something different than what it was. And, you know, we got two movies that are mediocre compared to what they could have been. That's my 2 cents. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. And if you really want to know how it all comes full circle in the ending of Alien Romulus in those last 15 minutes with that one creature, that abomination offspring, check out this video.